All right, we are live, and I am excited to interview today's guest and introduce you all to him. He's a chef, an entrepreneur, and a father. Welcome to the winner circle, Bryan Beneke.
Hey, thank you.
So we talked a bit before about the podcast, but all the craziness going on in the world, and it's has impacted your industry huge. The restaurant industry, the hospitality industry, and we'll get into that in our conversation. But to kick things off, I like to keep this positive light, positive. So I'm going to ask a really positive question, and that is, Bryan, what do you love about your world right now?
Man, I love the people around me are really great. I mean, spending time with my family is just amazing, and I love it. And I mean, it's just great, just being able to do that and finding the things that you enjoy about that. I love that everything is people are like it's changing now. It's finally there's a light at the end of the tunnel, it seems like, and it seems that it's moving forward. So
Mm-hmm. So, in order for our listeners to get to know you, I think a good question that I like to ask everyone is, what is your mission? All companies, restaurants, they have missions that they're overriding theme, their North Star that guides them in all that they do. And our mission is always changing. But right here, right now, what is your current mission on this reality plane, Bryan?
my mission at the moment is to where I'm in this moment where I'm trying to buy this restaurant, and that's been my nonstop goal right now. But it's not to buy a restaurant and to do that. It's to get back to work. It's to get back to helping people. It's to get back to developing people. That's one of my things that I've enjoyed about my career is, I mean, uh, every single restaurant that I've ran, like when I leave, my assistant takes over and they're successful. And that's great. I love developing people and watching them grow, and that solving the day-to-day problems and getting back to work. So that's my mission right now.
Mm-hmm. So let's get right into that origin story. You have had such a journey as a restaurateur and a chef, and I want to get into that origin. How did that become? When did your interest in food become, and how did you evolve that into your full-time career, your passion that you've been in it for decades now?
Yeah, so I've been moving around a lot. By the time I was in 12th grade, I went to 11 different schools, and I've lived in and overall, like right now, I've lived in 13 states and 2 countries. So I've always been the new kid. I've always been that. So we moved down to Texas when I was a junior in high school, and they had my school offered this culinary program, and it was taught by a German master chef. And I was like, oh, let's just try it. And I didn't know then what it was all about. Had no idea. But he made something. The chef made something called a consomme. It's a soup that it starts off like this big cloudy mess, and you form this raft on top with egg whites and protein, and then it clarifies like anybody did it in a glass pot. And so we watched like this 2 hour process happening, and it like was this just cloudy mess, and then it clarified and was crystal clear and so flavorful. I was like, that literally was the moment the light switch hit, and I was just like, I need to find out what happened. Like, what happened? How did that happen? you know and I need to know everything about that, because that just blew my mind. And then I started getting into kitchens, and it was just the form of, I mean, kitchens are based at the after the military. It's called the brigade system, and
Mm-hmm.
the next guy is the next guy in charge. So there's a clear path of how to move up, and that's what I really needed, the structure behind that. I mean, and I knew I needed it too. I was a day away from joining the army, And then I got a scholarship to culinary school, and that recruiter was pretty pissed. But I needed the structure and the discipline of the kitchen to just to form me, because I mean I was just a little troublemaker. So it helped a lot, and that's just. But when I saw that consomme, that soup form, and the wrap form on top, and it was just wild to me.
Hmm. And then, so you mentioned you got a scholarship to go to culinary school. How did that come about? And let's continue the story from there.
Yeah, it was a scholarship to go to the Culinary Institute of America. It was you apply for it, you write an essay. It was through the Texas Restaurant Association and stuff as well. So it was really good. So I went, and that's in upstate New York. So I went after I graduated. I went to upstate New York to do to to learn that, and I worked for a couple chefs in town in Austin here. And like my goal was, and they went to that school too, and I found out their GPAs, and my goal was to beat them. And that's, I just wanted to do better than them. So I worked on that. A thing that I focus on is turning my weaknesses into strengths. And I really like, it's probably a little too much. I failed culinary French 3 times. It just didn't click. And I mean, the verbs coming first, and I mean, just the language didn't click at all. So after I graduated, I moved to the south of France for 6 months, and I worked in a 1-star Michelin restaurant. And I mean, and in a French restaurant, you start off prep, and then you just work your way up. And so that's what I did. But I just moved there not speaking any French. And when I came back, I mean, I was talking in my sleep in French. And I mean, that's when you're like, okay, this is I got it. So that's good. And then
So
I
you,
moved back to Austin
Mhm.
after that, because my wife, me and my wife, we met in high school, and she was in Austin here. So I moved back here after that, and so I started working for the Four Seasons Hotel group then, and we got married, and I worked, and then I transferred to Atlanta, Georgia, with them, and just kept on moving up.
Beautiful. What kind of restaurants were you working in Atlanta?
So the Four Seasons had a thing where they were either transforming their restaurants into steakhouses or Italian. So I was in Austin here, and we transformed. It was called the Cafe. We transformed that into Trio Steakhouse. And so I was the AM sous chef there, and then there was the PM chef de cuisine. And then when I transferred to Atlanta, we transferred their restaurant into a steakhouse there. So we were just doing steakhouses, and then I got a crazy offer from a casino in Northern California. So I left the hotel and I went there and did the casino for 2 years, and I ran their steakhouse for 2 years, and then
Hmm.
got a pretty crazy offer again to go back to the Four Seasons. So I did, and so we had our first child in Sacramento, and then I was in a transition to move to Orlando, Florida, with the hotel group, but I was in Scottsdale, Arizona. In we're supposed to be there for I think it was 3 weeks. Scottsdale, Arizona. And, get a time to work out the menus, get a time to work out everything we needed to. The 3 weeks turned into 6 months, and my daughter had her first birthday there, and so that deal actually went south, and they were like, it's not going to happen. This restaurant, it was the first unbranded restaurant in Four Seasons history, and it was on the Disney property. So the lawyers were going back and forth over who was managing who, and they couldn't come to an agreement. So they were like, you know, this deal is not going to happen. So do you want to, where do you want to go? Do you want to work for Disney, or do you want to stay with the hotel? And I was like, yeah, I want to stay with the hotel. There were two openings with my position there, one in Jakarta and one in Maui. So I chose Maui. So we got to live in Maui. I was the chef de cuisine of the hotel there. I ran their steakhouse, and it was great. That's I found other things that I like to do though. So I moved to Maui, and we only had one car, and I had a pregnant wife and a 1-year-old daughter, and we had our one car, and so she would drop me off at work at like 10 in the morning, and I would work in the resort, get off work at 11, and I would jog 7 miles home because I didn't want her to not have a car and not be able to do anything. And I'm working all day, so I'm not using it. So I found running then, and I loved it. I moved to Maui. I was 260, and when I moved back, I was 180 pounds.
Wow.
So I mean, it was great. It was just great, and it was like, and I'm an introvert too, so it was the perfect thing for me to just clear my head and hear the ocean, waves, and like when I'm jogging home at the end of a long day, it was the best. I love it. I loved it. So that was great. And then after the 2 years there, we had our second kid in Maui, and second girl, and then my wife really needed some family help, and she was just like, yeah, we're moving back to Austin. And we bought our house here in 2006, and we were renting it out, and the tenants were coming up on another lease, and we were just like, let's just move back in. And so we moved back into the house that we already had, and it was just really easy, So that was good. So we moved back in 2014.
And then I met you in Austin. You were working you were the chef at Hideaway. You were winning awards, and it was a very successful restaurant. And that came to a close during the pandemic time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how the pandemic affected the restaurant and the hospitality industry, for you, and just really worldwide, and just your perspectives and all that.
It shut everything down. I mean, it really was rough, and I mean, nobody knew about it. Nobody knew nobody knew what was going to happen. So I mean, and it kind of, Austin was like a thing because we had South by Southwest was happening, and we just started seeing people pulling out of South by. Companies like that were sponsoring it were just pulling out, and we were like, the writing's on the wall, like, fuck, and then when the closures started happening, it was like, okay, it's time to figure this out. So I mean, like, we pivoted very fast to try to stay open, and to try to I made to-go menus and delivery, like, because there's a bunch of hotels around that restaurant, and so I started walking them over to hotels, and then I found out like that they were all the hotels closed, like all the Marriott's closed, and they were like, hey, this looks great, but we're closed, and like 6 hotels closed, and there was just one they just kept one open, and they moved all the business to that one, which was, I mean, so it was like, oh crap, like this is real. And yeah, I mean, I furloughed like 45 people of the staff, and then I'm talking to the owner investor, and he was just like, hey, we can't keep you on. I mean, part of my salary was like banquets and catering.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's, yeah, so I mean, it sucks for me, and I mean, I get it as a business person, but it's pretty rough, and nobody knew the PPP, nobody knew anything. So I mean, one out of 4 people on unemployment are from the hospitality industry in the US. I mean, it's a lot, and everybody's talking about the new normal, everybody's talking about what the future holds, but there's not going to be a new normal. I mean, there is a new normal, but we're not going back to the way it was. I mean, my wife's an accountant. She got moved home. I mean, I'm in her office. This used to be my office in our house, and now it's her office. So it's but she's her ergonomic desk and all of her monitors and stuff are here, and they're not going home. And I mean, a lot of places are finding out that they don't have to have a big place that they pay 65,000 a month in rent and then have bean bags and ping pong tables and a snack bar for their employees. The employees can work from home and still get the job done, if not even more productivity out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of companies are pivoting to doing that. So a lot less people are going out because you're like, well, I can do this from home. I mean, the restaurant industry just got hit so hard because we have so many people and there's restaurants everywhere. I mean, I mean, you know, so malls are going to be going away. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to be going away because of it. Co-working spaces, remember those?
Yeah.
Like everyone's working from home. Nobody cares about a co-working space anymore.
Yeah.
So it's wild.
So what's the evolution of the hospitality industry and the restaurant business going to look like from your eyes? What do you see happening?
I think it's going to be a lot more neighborhood restaurants. I think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be, I really think that people are pivoting because um, we need to have, we need to support each other. And I think that we're going to have like family neighborhood restaurants popping out, and it's not going to be, I mean, they'll still, have the fine dining restaurants you go to, every once in a while. But I think that the neighborhood restaurant is going to start to move up, and it's going to be, people aren't going to need this big grandioso place. I think the neighborhood mom and pop shops are going to be where it's at.
That's interesting. How will they compete with like national corporations, like franchises that have a much lower cost and that could really beat them on that end, like prices on just on ingredients and buying product,
Yeah,
advertisement. How will the mom and pops compete with these like global conglomerates, big
it's hard.
franchises?
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. We got to be creative. And that's a thing. Like, I mean, I'm looking at, an Italian place, and I sent off the sauces to get tested to for shelf life sustainability, so I can start trying to sell them in grocery stores. I mean, we need to have multiple revenue streams, and we have to start thinking outside of the box. I mean, a lot of people would just do one thing, and that would be able to support you, and it's not going to do that anymore. I mean,
Mhm.
we have to pivot, we have to be flexible, and that's the only way we can compete. I mean, I've worked for the some chain places and with like unlimited checkbooks and things like that, and I mean, they're good. I mean, they're giving people jobs too. So I mean, that's nice, but it's definitely harder when it's yours.
So working in the restaurant industry, you have to be like very resilient for longevity, um, for many reasons. Like the atmosphere in the kitchen sometimes is very chaotic. You're needing to push out food. There's different temperaments, different personalities that work in the restaurant industry. Just the nature of the restaurant business itself. Like there's a lot of turnaround with restaurants. Like restaurants stay for maybe 5 years, and then you have to rebrand, create something new because the public is wanting something novelty, right? So how have you forged
Yeah,
a resilient
definitely.
spirit in your time in the industry?
Yeah, staying relevant is a thing, and you have to pivot and figure out what's going on and staying current. And I mean, but you have to love it too. I mean, and it shows, because it demands a lot of time. And if you don't love it, you're wasting time because it's gonna come out either way. I mean, like I mean, Instagram is very important now. I mean, so I mean, I know restaurants that'll have they'll do like a crawfish boil once a year when crawfish is perfect,
Hmm.
and they'll sell 300 tickets on Instagram because they have, 20,000 followers, and they're all local and stuff. But I mean, who would have, there's a ton of restaurants that are like, yeah, whatever, Instagram. But no, it's important. You have to figure that out and embrace it and not fight it. A lot of people are fighting it and things like that. So I mean, you know, I don't like influencers. You got to comp them when they come in, and hopefully they'll put you in their story or whatever, and they'll see it. I've seen it work, and I mean, it's bittersweet. And I don't give everybody free meals at all, because I mean that's it's not going to work that way. But there's a couple of them that I really like, and I've gotten to know over the years, and I think it's worth the value. A lot of people, some people don't though, so it's it's interesting to see how people think and navigate it.
Hmm. So there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that were listening that have a passion for food or they work in the restaurant industry. Would you advise like a new upstart, um, like person that wants to break into this industry? They have a passion for food. They've been inspired by something like that consomme soup that inspired you,
Yeah,
and they want to
yeah.
pursue this path. Like, how would you advise that person? How would you advise your daughters if they wanted to go into the restaurant industry? What would be your advice?
You gotta love it. I mean, go work in a restaurant before you spend the money on school. You got to remember, it's the service industry, so you're working when everybody else is having fun. So you have to remember that, like, you're still working. It's a long job, hard job. I mean, it's a lot of work, and that's what it is. So you have to love the work. So go see if you do. I mean, go pick up a job somewhere, and see if you like making pasta, see if you like doing that. I mean, it's really gratifying to see everybody, see in a crowded restaurant, and you're just, everyone's having a good time, everything's smooth, and like the kitchen's just running like a fine machine, and everything's coming out, and the flow is perfect. That's great. I mean, that's a high that I mean, that's flow state. That's my flow state.
Hmm.
Like, I love it. But I've seen so many people, like, that don't like what they do, and it's like, you're wasting your time, man. I mean, it's not going to end well if you don't, and don't, so try it before you invest in the schooling, I would say. But
Hmm.
because any you can get in any restaurant, you can walk in the door and start. So
Okay, so say like this individual has got a job in a restaurant, is liking it. What's the next steps? How do you evolve just as an employee in a restaurant to creating the menu, creating your own businesses like you have done? How do you evolve into that?
it's a thing, because it's leadership. It's I've had mentors. So Chef Proms at the Four Seasons here was my mentor. He gave me a shot when nobody else was giving me a shot. And people work, and you get promoted to a leadership position because you're good at your job, and then you get to manage somebody doing your job, doing your old job, and you're better than them at it, but you're not necessarily a good leader or a good manager. You're just good at your job, and that's how you got promoted. So there's a pivot that you need to do to understand, like, okay, I'm here because I can, work this station better than you, but I need to make this person work this station as good as me, so then it can run smoothly too. So that's leadership, and a lot of coaching and talking, and hey, let's make this dish again, hey, let's do this again, hey, and the constant tweaks that you need to make. And that's really important. But and that's the difference, and that's how can somebody see you in that role, and that's the thing. So I mean, having mentors is pretty much the way to move up in the kitchen. Is
Okay.
is if somebody doesn't you're just, a pantry cook or a salad cook or whatever, and until, you're like, hey, how does this work? How did, teach me, so.
Mhm. So how do you find a mentor? Let's start there. How do you find a mentor? How, say someone wanted to be mentored by you, like how do you find a mentor? Whether that be in the restaurant industry or anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's I mean, you can ask them. It's a it's an investment in time. And that's the thing. So usually, like, I would have a cook that would just be, working and working, and then they'll, I have one-on-ones with all my guys and stuff, and hey, what, because I mean, I look at it differently. I think that when I'm in charge of a place, people don't work for me, I work for everybody else. So
Hmm.
and that's why we have, what do you need, what do you need, what do you need, and it's a legitimate question, and if you ask somebody how they're doing, you got to own that, and you got to I really care how you're doing, so how are you doing, and so a lot of conversations like that, and then in those conversations somebody will be like, hey, how do you think I should deal with this situation with so and so, and then now we're talking about how they can improve themselves, and
Yeah.
that's what I miss in the entire time of the pandemic. That's what I've missed doing, is helping people like that.
Yeah. So, what are some qualities of the people that you've helped that made you want to help with them? What are the common traits of those individuals that you want to spend your time? Your time is very limited. You're a very busy guy.
Yeah.
What were the qualities of the various mentees that you mentored that made you want to dedicate time and effort in them, in their development?
It's all over the place. I mean, some people, some people just are like, they are very, very good cooks, and they should be moving up, but their management skills are crap, and some people aren't really good cooks, but they're good leaders and good managers, so they want to go through it a different way. And I mean, there's many different ways to move up, and that's how it is. So it's pretty wild. I mean, you never know who you're going to end up, talking to and helping and stuff, but it
Mhm.
just finds itself, so.
Mhm. From what you've learned, what makes a good leader?
Empathy, I think empathy helps a lot. They have to have inner drive themselves, it's not, I I can give you a lot of tools, but unless you take them and go with them, then it's not. So I would say inner drive, but empathy as well. Patience is really important to me. I think that patience is just a huge thing, um, because this is just a crazy environment, a crazy, I mean, you never know what's going to happen, and I mean, sometimes you're putting out a lot of fires, but sometimes you're actually putting out fires. Sometimes there's a grease buildup under the grill and it lights on fire. So you never know what's going to happen. But with the leadership, I mean, empathy and drive. You know,
Mhm. So you've mentioned being helped
I
on your
think
path.
we froze.
Oh,
Okay.
we're good. So you mentioned, um,
Okay, I can hear you. I'm sorry.
okay, yeah, you mentioned many mentors on your path that have helped you along your way. Let's take a moment to recognize some of those mentors. Who were they, and what were your key takeaways you've learned from them?
Ooh, Elmar at the Four Seasons here. He's this German executive chef. He's worked his job here. I mean, like, it doesn't happen anymore. He's had one job for like 45 years. He's been at this hotel. And I mean, it's just amazing. But he would come in literally 7 or 8 a.m. every single day and be there until 8 or 9 at night, 6 days a week. He's always taking one day off though. And I mean, just the work ethic and this constant just, he would just pound and pound and pound. And it was like, oh man, so if I want this, I got to do that. And I mean, he was a little old school. So he could get away with stuff that, a lot of people wouldn't get away with right now, in talking to people and things. Uh, but he truly gave a shit about people though too, and he's developed a lot of good chefs, and he just leads by example, you know and that was a thing that was really interesting to see. So
Mhm.
that was good. There's another one in town. He has a restaurant called Lenore. Todd Duplessis, and he's amazing too. He changed my management perspective, coming from Elmar, where it's just tough. Let's go, push, push, push. Um, I remember it. Elmar went on vacation, and Todd brought the kitchen management team into a room, and it was like, "Hey, chef's on vacation for the next 2 weeks," and we're like, "Okay, yeah, we'll get it done." And he was like, "We're gonna try something new," and everybody's like, "Huh?" And he's like, "We're not gonna yell at anyone for the next 2 weeks. We're gonna over communicate. We're gonna drive the message, and we're gonna try it this way." And like people were like, "What?" All the other chefs were just like, "Huh?" And they're like, "Okay, let's do it." And it worked. Different ways to motivate people, and like, to motivate me in the kitchen. Like, if somebody yells at me, I'm like, "Okay, fuck you, I'm gonna work harder and we're gonna do it." That doesn't work for everybody else. So finding out how to motivate other people, and some people are motivated with, like, even if they're doing really shitty, give them a compliment and then they're like, "Oh man," and then they go work harder. So finding
Mhm.
out each person and what motivates them to be able to get the result is good. And that's kind of what I learned from Todd, and that really it was good, because you don't have to be a dick all the time.
Mhm. Yeah, that's real powerful. Um, so the restaurant industry is a bit stressful, right? A lot stressful for some. So it's very important that we attend to our self-care, and our well-being. And one way you mentioned you were doing that in Hawaii was running. Um, Nowadays, how do you manage your self-care? What are some tips for managing your well-being for those working in the restaurant industry? How do you lead by example in that front?
It's definitely, I can actually, I mean, I've done the bad stuff and I've done the good stuff. I mean, like, everybody goes, and I mean, there's a lot of alcoholism, a lot of drinking and things. People cope with the stress different ways.
Hmm.
In Maui, I found running, and it really was, it was out of necessity, and it was just really good, for me. So then, I mean, I'm glad that I've had that, as an opener to it. So then when I can do that, I mean, I just rejoined on it this past month, after, and it's been a year since I've been back there.
Hmm.
And I mean, I didn't know how much I missed that place. And it's not necessarily, it is the work of it, but it's being around all those positive people. It's being around people that just want the best for you. So, at the end of the night, like, if it's time to, you know, when I'd be having, like, a couple glasses of wine or too many glasses of wine, like, it's like, no, I got to go get up and work out in the morning. Let's just go to bed.
Hmm.
And so that's helps me out a lot. There's a lot of, like, running groups and stuff in town here that is good. So trying to have a positive thing to put this energy, but it is stressful. And I mean, a lot of people, do deal with it. I'm not going to say the bad way, but in other ways. But I going back to the gym and running has helped me do it a lot.
Hmm. And community is a big aspect of On It and why people enjoy it there. As a leader, how do you build community in your restaurant and amongst your employees?
That's a reason why a lot of people have stayed with me over some time. And I mean, in my last restaurant for sure, because I mean, it was a really tight on money, and I couldn't pay a lot of people what I wanted to pay them, but they were like, "Hey, I just got offered $3 more an hour over here, but I'm gonna stay here because I like it here." And then be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, that's great," you know. And you have to build the family atmosphere. You have to build the dynamic that and you do that by having your employees backs, like, and like I've said before, they don't work for me, I work for them. And I'm there to support them as much as I can. And like, let's say I go home a little early on a Saturday one night to see my family, and some table comes in at closed, and they don't tell the table that we're closed. They help them because that's what I would do, so they see that, and it happens when I'm not there, thank God, and that's culture, and but it starts with having your guys backs, and supporting them, and once they
Mm-hmm.
feel that you have their back, then it works out good. And I do have the guys, I mean, if I can give them a raise, I do. So I mean, I'm not a greedy person too, so you see me come in with my drive in with my Nissan Versa. I'm not driving a Mercedes, I mean, so one day hopefully, but not today.
Yeah. So on the path, there's various highs and lows, and we've talked about one of the biggest lows that you've have to experience lately, and that's dealing with the pandemic and the impact that has had on your career, your business, and all your endeavors. Let's take a moment to acknowledge some other challenges and obstacles you've encountered on the path. What were they, and how you overcame them, and what were the learnings you got from that?
Challenges and obstacles, have I've been in some pretty interesting situations. Like whenever you're working like somewhere like and you take over a restaurant, and like, so like usually there's an old chef, usually there's the person that had the job before you, and usually there's a reason why they're leaving and you're coming in. So dealing with that has always been, as always, a tricky situation to navigate. And I took over this steakhouse in Northern California, and the chef, he was married with two kids, but he was also, one of the food runners was his girlfriend, the pantry cook was his girlfriend. He was just like, you know doing all this other stuff, not being the chef of the restaurant. And that's why he was moving out. And but then I come in, and you know his girlfriend is the food runner and the pantry cook, so I'm not getting good vibes from these people. And then he's going to have drinks with all these guys after work still, and they can't be saying the greatest things about me when I'm just trying to do my job and get the restaurant to where it needs to be. So
Mm-hmm.
I and then again, it takes time to build these relationships. So just moving in with these time, but yeah, that was tough. I mean, that was pretty rough. But you just gotta keep on fighting the good fight, and doing it, and eventually it'll work out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, a lot of people, and just appreciating the staff and the people. Like I've had so many people be like, if somebody has something negative to say about me, and other people are like, well, he tells me great job after every day, and he appreciates what I do. So it's like, you got to win them, get them like that.
Mm-hmm. Any other challenges and obstacles you faced throughout your journey? They don't have to be restaurant related. They could be personal related. You were mentioning you're 260 pounds. That was a challenge to get down to 180. Like, what are some other notable challenges that have impacted your development and your evolution as a human?
Yeah, I mean, it's energy. There's I mean, having family has been a thing. Like I have two girls, 9 and 7. And I mean, that's a challenge. It's wild to have them grow up, but they're really good people. Like I mean, like I'm creating like good people, you know. And it's really interesting to just watch the development and the personalities come out, and that but yeah, I mean, like when I did move to Maui in 2012, I was 260 pounds, and we had one car, and I had one kid, and my wife was pregnant with their second kid, and she was dropping us. She would drop me off at work at 10 in the morning, and at 10 or 11 or 12 at night, it would be time to go home, and I would jog 7 miles home. But I loved it. I freaking loved it, because I would go over everything of my day. I would go over conversations that I had with people, and maybe I could, maybe I did this wrong. Maybe I had this coaching session was wrong. Maybe I could, and I had the time to decompress during that time, and to think, maybe if I had this conversation differently, I could have got a better result out of it. Or maybe if, I did this, I could do that. And it really, really helped me. And that's why, I mean, I used to love the traffic in Austin. Like people hate traffic. I loved it because I could, I would just be driving, and I would be going over the day and decompressing that way.
Hmm.
So that helped me a lot. But I mean, yeah, there's tons of challenges, man. I mean, this past year has been a challenge, I mean, it's been, what do you do when there's nothing to do, and there's like you can't work,
Hmm.
it's crazy. And then, how do I, and how do I pivot to, I never want to get the phone call again that I'm fired, how do I not have that happen to me again?
Hmm.
And that's what I'm doing now, is like I'm not gonna I'm sick of working for people, man. I'm not gonna do that anymore. So I need to figure that out. And that's been my mission this year, is to not work for anyone again. And if I'm not gonna put myself and my family in a situation where somebody can fire me. And that's been my goal.
Hmm. So what have you learned on that path? What have you learned about not wanting to work for someone again? How do you do that? What are some of the steps to make that happen?
Restaurant industry, and it's now, again, it's I mean, I'm a chef. I'm not a real estate guy. I'm not a different guy, and all this stuff is out of my wheelhouse. It's stuff that I don't know. So it's learning, and I have friends that are into different, fields. Thank God, because like half of this restaurant thing is about negotiating a lease with a landlord. I mean, and if you don't negotiate a good lease with the landlord, guess what? You're fucked, because you're
Hmm.
not going to be able to pay your rent, and then you're done. So and locations and different things like that you don't think about when, I just want to make this food for you. Sorry, man. You got to be a businessman now, So
Hmm.
now you got to put on your businessman hat, and you got to go talk to these people, and you got to go talk to banks, and hey, it's the middle of a pandemic. Restaurants are open 50% occupancy. Can I get $500,000 to buy one? And they're like, no. So it's a different aspect of the business, but it is so important to I mean, just to wear a different hat, and to see, because if your lease negotiations aren't right, you're done, man. So
Hmm.
it's been a crazy experience to work on.
Yeah. So we've talked about a lot of your challenges. Let's spend some time to talk about some of your wins. What have been some of your greatest accomplishments on the path, things that you are most proud of?
I am super proud of I don't know. It might be because like I could say, yeah, we did this or that, but I'm proud of people that have like that I've developed over the years. And I get those phone calls from people that are like, hey chef, I just got to tell you thank you. I one the other day, one of my guys, he was just like, was I mean, I think he's like gonna make like $150,000 this year. And he was just like, I thank you for developing me and showing those phone calls. I mean the world to me, man. And I love to see it. And I mean, you know, and and the people that I've helped out through the years when they're just like, I mean, they're just doing it, and they're and those phone calls that are just like, hey chef, I just want to tell you thanks. I couldn't have done it without you. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's a huge win for me when you get those. I mean, yeah, yeah, that's what it's all about for me.
Hmm. So, what does your win look like for you today? This podcast is called Welcome to the Winner Circle, because in my belief that anyone could be a winner. And it starts with taking a step forward, embracing the process rather than being destination orientated. We live in a very destination orientated society. When I get this job, when I get this restaurant, when I get this car, when I get this house, da 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 da, I'll be happy. And then you get there, maybe there's some momentary happiness, but then it's always a case of now what. So to me, being a
Yeah,
winner is embracing the process, moving forward towards your goal. And in that action, doors will open that otherwise would not have been there. So you're going for this goal, and then maybe all these other opportunities arise. And so,
yeah.
what does going for your win mean to you and look like for you today?
I think it's embracing the journey is a big thing. And I totally agree with that. The other day, I actually got some bad news, or is it bad news? I don't know. And that was the whole thing. It started out being bad news, that it's going to take a little longer to to embrace and get the funds secured that we need. And I was like, and they were like, another month. And I was like, another fucking month, you know? But then I'm like, you're looking at this wrong. You got another month with your family. You got another month, to before, to get ready, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's embracing the journey, because like I want to, get to point B. But I want another month with my kids too. I want another month with my wife when I'm not working 80-hour weeks. So it's gonna come. I know it's gonna come, and there's no other option. But yeah, you're right. Embrace it and enjoy it, and we are, So that's a good thing for me, you know.
Mm-hmm. So family is like a really important and big part of your life. You've mentored so many people in your career, um, and you've taught them so many things. What would you like to teach your daughters? What are the lessons you want them to learn from you? What do you want to teach them?
Yeah, I mean, it's 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 funny because there's so different. I mean, like one is just like, just like, oh, I got to do great in school, I got to, do this. And the other one is kind of like me when I was a kid, and just like I'm gonna go nuts. So I think different things, but I mean, just patience, empathy. I want them to just, be good people, and just care about other people. Also, I mean, they're my daughters, so I want them to be happy. I want them to be self-sufficient, and and be able to take care of themselves without relying on other people. Um, but I mean, I believe that will happen, so.
Mm-hmm. So through it all, through the journey, through the highs and the lows and everywhere in between, what has been your greatest life lesson that you've learned on your path that speaks to you right now that you'd like to share with the audience and everyone listening?
No one else is going to do it for you. You got to do it yourself. You got to go. You got to, it's self motivated, man. You got to, if there's something that, I mean, you can't be like, oh, I wish somebody would have taught me that. Teach it to yourself. Just get whatever you need to do and get it. And you know, time, no, you don't get it back, but you also waste time when you're sitting around feeling bad about the time you've wasted. So if there's, you know, just figure it out and go. And that's the thing. And if you know it's harder to get rid of a bad idea than to start a new idea. So if you're got a bad idea and you gotta pivot, man. Just move, you know. If you're only got one life, if you're not happy, change it. And figure it out, because no one's gonna do it for you, you know. So yeah.
Beautiful. So what do you look forward to on the path ahead? Like, what do you have in the works? You mentioned you have a restaurant business, like an Italian restaurant, in the process. So let's just talk about, what are your goals for the future? What are your aspirations, and what are the intentions you want to put out there? And what kind of impact you want to create with those developments?
Yeah, I mean, I want to get in the restaurant and I mean, and just do the best we can. And I know we will. But like I said before, we have to, we're not going to get the numbers that we've had before. It's just not going to happen. And if you think it is, you think this roaring 20s is coming back, I mean, hopefully, but guess what? The 30s were the depression. So, I mean, you got to be able to get ready for each thing. I think again, like, pivoting to, you know, an Italian restaurant, we have some badass sauces. Let's throw those into the grocery stores too, you know, and think about different ways a restaurant can make money, you know. And you know, we got to make our own pasta, you know, homemade pasta is great. I mean, so can we sell that too, you know? So a grocery thing, so people can, you know, take the restaurant home with them and do it at home too. So I mean, just, you know, being there, you know, having it in your face all the time, and exposure, you know, is really important.
So when can we expect to see this restaurant in Austin, Texas, this Italian restaurant opening? I mean, does it have a name yet?
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait. And I think we're a month out. So I hope. So yeah, that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be great. And yeah. And as soon as it happens, man, I'm telling you, you'll see it all over the place.
Oh, does it have a name yet, or you can't say that just yet?
It does have a name. It does, and I'm not gonna share it yet.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, so to close every interview, I asked my guests the final two questions, and we've got to that time where I'm going to ask you those final two questions. So the first one, in 3 words, how would you describe the experience you are having on this earth?
Oh, exciting, fun, happy.
Exciting, fun, and happy. I like those words. That's a great experience you're having on this earth. Okay,
yeah.
So to
It
get
is.
to where,
Yeah, no, I'm an optimist, man. I'm an optimist. So I like to take the good and leave the bad. So
it's a great trait. Okay, so for my last question, so I believe we are all magicians and we have transformative powers, and I'm going to transform us into the future. I'm going to take us into a time far from now, and we're going to be alongside an 85-year-old Bryan Beneke. What does your life look at 85? Who are you surrounded by? Where are you? What are you doing? And what is the legacy that you have left here on your time on Earth?
I this is a wild question. I love it. And yeah. I like that I didn't know these questions were going to be asked, so I don't have any time to prepare for them. I always say that I'm gonna die in the restaurant, and it's probably pretty crazy to think, but I think at 85 I'll probably still be in the restaurant. And I'll be surrounded with my family, and that's I do, because I really found what I love to do, and that's what I love. So I do have a feeling that I'll be with my family in a restaurant in some capacity.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So I
I
want
hope
you
you
to
got that. You're
yeah,
frozen.
I did. And I want you to stay in this future. I want you to stay with this
Okay.
85-year-old Bryan. Feel how that feels to be that 85-year-old Bryan who's left such a lasting impact with all those that he's worked with. You're still working in the restaurant. You're surrounded by family. You're still having fun. You're still in a place of joy. You're still optimistic. So feel how that feels to be that 85-year-old Bryan. I'm going to bring us back to the now. And that 85-year-old Bryan sends you a message. What does he whisper into your ear?
He's probably gonna be like, just keep going, keep pushing, because that's yeah. I mean, that's what I would probably tell myself. Yeah, I love that.
Beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing and showing the audience and the listeners that if we listen to our heart and we pursue our passions, such beautiful things will open up to us. And there's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be challenges. But when we find the thing we love, you're an example of going for it. For those who have not found what they love, your advice to them?
I don't know. I mean, I found cooking when I was 17, and I met my wife, or I found cooking when I was 16. I met my wife when I was 17. So I mean, I'm pretty stubborn and I find what I like and I just go with it. And that's that. If you don't know the path you're on, I don't know, man. Just be true to yourself and find something and go 100% in, because I don't think you can make it if there's an exit strategy. Like, I mean, I just heard about a rapper that got face tattoos because he was like, I got to make sure I'm not hireable in the real world, and that's I'm gonna, and this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. And I was like, that's terrible. But then I was like, well, no, that's not terrible, because that's his path, and that's what he's gonna do, right? But
Mhm.
I mean, that's the whole thing, is just keep on. I mean, if you don't know what you're gonna do, figure out what you like and just go 100%, man.
Go all in and keep going.
Yep.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Bryan. Um, is there any last closing words you'd like to share? And then where can people find you?
Bryan Beneke on Instagram is the best. I mean, and I'm trying to do all I can. Once I get this restaurant out, then I'll go from there. But yeah, that's
Right
that's
on.
it. And in Austin, Texas, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, right on. And hopefully this will be released when your restaurant will be opening up. So we'll time these to a similar time. So to close every episode, we raise our fist up and we bring it in for digital fist bump. Boom. Thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure and it's an honor, and it was nice to chat with you. I miss you, and hope to be in Austin soon enough when things open up and having some delicious Italian food at your new restaurant.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see you again, man.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan.
All right, brother.